Good morning, everybody, and welcome to today's edition of Boredom Busters with Lincoln Children's Museum. Now today, we are going to be going into dinosaurs for the last time. After this, we'll be starting on robots. But today, we are going to talk about fossils and fossilization. That is the word. So a fossil is something that has been preserved for a very, very long time. Now, dinosaur bones can be fossilized, and when that happens, it has to be buried for a very long time. We talked about this a little bit the other day, but for something to become a fossil, it has to be buried underground, usually very quickly, so that it doesn't get eaten or so it doesn't rot, but so it has time to fossilize. And what happens underground is over time, the tiny little particles of those bones and shells, sometimes wood, will be replaced with minerals, and it turns it into a rock, just exactly in the exact same shape as the original thing, whether it's a bone or a shell or wood. Now, we're going to be making some fossils today, but we're going to be making a kind of fossil called a trace fossil, because another way that something can turn into a fossil is think about a nice muddy area, and when you walk through it, you leave footprints. But what happens to those footprints after a while? Well, if the sun comes out right away, that mud will dry and your footprints will still be in the mud. But unless something pretty wild happens, next time it rains, those footprints are just, that dirt's gonna turn back into mud and your footprints will be gone. Now, sometimes though, something special happens and maybe it never rains there again. And that soil that you stepped in, those footprints would be preserved if it never rains there. Another thing that can happen is maybe a volcano will erupt and the ash from the volcano will land in your footprints. The ash will harden and your footprints will be preserved between that dirt and that ash. Now, to learn a little bit more about how all of the fossils form, we have a song recommendation today. It is a catchy song with a lot of good facts in it. It is called Fossils Song. And for our video recommendation, we have one here called How Do Dinosaur Fossils Form? And what this picture here is representing also, this is a picture of a big giant weight, a big heavy thing. So think about the amount of dust that happens in your home. Just even over a couple of months, there's a layer of dust on everything. Now imagine if nobody dusted for 5 million years. How heavy would that dust become? It would become very heavy and very thick. So that's what the weight means. All that dirt is really heavy. So sometimes, actually usually, the fossils of the bones that are underground, because dirt is heavy. If you've ever tried to fill up a bucket with dirt and carry it across the yard, it can get heavy quickly, can't it? So as that dirt piles up on top of the bones will squish and bend. So when paleontologists find them, they find a squished up bent bone fossil, then they have to figure out what it looked like before 100 million years of dirt sat on top of it. And for our book recommendation today, we have There Was an Old Lady Who Swallowed a Fossil by P. Crumple. It is based on that classic, There Was an Old Lady Who Swallowed a Fly. So it's just a fun story. We have it linked for you, so give it a listen. And now our printable today, there's Kazoo with his friends, and they are at the fossil park. Now, how many different fossils can you see under the T-Rex slide? Now, are any of them the same as each other? Which ones are different? And when you're done counting, if you have a printer, you can print this out, cut around the picture, and then there are some little light lines going through the picture that you can cut on, and then you'll have a little puzzle to put together. And for our activities today, I'm going to be doing one activity with you, and another activity that we have that's really fun, and I have it linked for you here. It's to make Jell-O, but put some dinosaurs in it. Because for everything to fossilize, it needs to be under layers and layers, right? So if you make your Jell-O a little bit firmer than usual, maybe a little bit less water in it, and if you do yellow, then it will look like amber, just fossilized tree sap. And wash your toy dinosaurs, your plastic dinosaurs, very thoroughly with soap and water, and then put them into the Jell-O while it's still liquid. Let it sit up overnight, and then the next day, for your treat, you can dig those dinosaurs out of the amber. All right, so let's get going on our fossils project over here. So we're going to make something, it's a little bit different, but it's called sand dough. So it's very, very close to salt dough, but it has sand in it. So it gives it this really nice texture and look to it. So what we need for this is water, glue, salt, sand, flour, and some paint. The paint is optional. You can make it be whatever color. So let's get started here. First, we're gonna mix together our wet ingredients. So I'm gonna go ahead, I'm gonna do about a half a cup of water here. There we go. I'm gonna do a squirt of brown paint. And I like putting the color into the water. This way it's easier when it gets to the time because if you try to add the color later, you have to work it in there and it gets all over your fingers. And then we're gonna need some glue. Now this is a different ingredient than what's normally in salt dough, and we need the glue to help hold those grains of sand together. So just some, maybe a tablespoon or two. And we need to mix that all together, make sure that it's all mixed so that glue, we can get that glue to go into solution here. I'm gonna let this sit for a second while I mix together my dry ingredients. All right, for our dry ingredients, we're going to do 1 cup of flour, 1 cup of sand, and I am gonna put in just a little bit of salt, because I feel like the salt helps with the texture. Oh, let's see here. Here's a half cup measuring cup. All right, and it doesn't have to be very exact for this recipe. So there is a half a cup of flour. Let's do 1 more of those. Perfect. So half cup plus half cup is 1 whole cup. And now we're gonna do some sand. So there is a half a cup of sand and another half a cup of sand. All right, let's get the flour and sand mixed together here. Go back to the wet ingredients and see how that glue is doing with dissolving in the water. All right. All right, very good. Now, it's easier to do this in either a really big bowl, or I'm just gonna use this tray. start getting this in here. We're gonna add some and mix together what we have, because we don't want to get it too wet. We want to do it equal. Oh, I forgot to add in a little bit of salt. Now, salt is not included in the recipe that we linked for you, but I like adding in some anyway. Helps hold it all together. So when we get this all mixed together, you'll see that it looks like sand because of all that sand in there. And this is a fun type of Play-Doh to make because it's really, it feels so good in your fingers. It's not as smooth as regular Play-Doh. And it's really fun to make things out of it and let them dry so you can keep it. Now, I've done this before as a project where I made a picture frame, actually. I cut out the outside of the picture frame from cardboard, and then I made the sand dough. I didn't add any paint to that one. Then stuck it all around the edges of on that cardboard for the picture frame. You can put in little seashells, little mementos from the beach, and have that as your picture frame from when you went to the beach. All right, so I think this is good for me for now. Oh, you can mix it together a little bit more, make it nice and solid. Now we're going to want to roll this out to be about 1/4 inch thick, because if it's too thick, it takes a really, really long time to dry. So that looks good to me. So now we can pretend that this is the mud that the dinosaurs are going to walk through. So I brought a couple of dinosaur friends here, and we'll just have them step in the sand dough. And then we just have to wait millions of years for them to turn into trace fossils. It's kind of hard to see probably with the camera. You can press them in really delicately, like this. But there are all those footprints. Now, if you are a paleontologist, someone who studies fossils, and you found these, what would you think happened there? We have our ceratops, we have some kind of, looks like some kind of tyrannosaur. So this is a carnivore, a meat eater. Look at those claws for catching prey, and those sharp teeth for eating their meat. And then we have a guy, look at those feet. Those don't have claws for catching prey. And the beak type thing here almost makes me think maybe this guy ate branches, maybe had to crack open some nuts. Oh, you have your different dinosaurs going through the same area. What happened there? What were they doing in the same area? You can let it dry naturally on its own. It might take a couple days, and really I wouldn't recommend that unless you can put it right out in the sunshine and dry quickly, because this flour will actually mold if it takes too long to dry, which is just kind of yucky. So you can also put it onto a paper plate, put it in the microwave for 10 seconds, take it out, put it back in for 10 seconds, take it out, put it back in for 10 seconds until it's hard, usually about a minute. Or you can put it onto a cookie sheet, put it in your oven at a low temperature to dry it out. And you can use this for all sorts of different things. Now you can even make, let's say you can make a handprint fossil. So you can press your hand into it, let it dry, and then when it's all dry, you can paint it. Now another thing that happens a lot is the shells will fossilize. So I brought a couple shells out here, and we can have so that the original material is replaced by minerals, or we can have that imprint. So there's that shell imprint. And this happens a lot because if you think about it, these guys, they live in water. And water actually is really, really good at breaking down and eroding soil and rocks to turn it into sand and very fine sediments. So if this little guy were in the ocean living and then it died, well, it's already on top of a really nice sandy layer. Then the sand in the ocean will settle down on top of it, and more and more and more and more, nothing can bother it underneath all of that sand and silt, and so it fossilizes. Now, we also have an active activity for you today. It's pretty fun. So what you need to do is just go outside with a piece of chalk, and you lay on the ground on the sidewalk and pretend to be a dinosaur and be moving around, and then someone shouts freeze, and that's where you stop. Then trace around your body have someone trace you with chalk, and that's maybe muscle. You get up, look and see at that outline if you can figure out where the different body parts were, and draw some bones into that shape where you are. Now, I do have a joke for you today, Miss Lauren.
Ooh, yes, Miss Greta?
So if Harry Potter was a dinosaur, what kind of dinosaur would he be?
I don't know. What kind?
A sorcerosaurus. Now, I hope everyone has been watching the Read Aloud Lincoln Story Times. Make sure to check out their website. I know that there's also some fun things coming up with the library, so make sure to check that out. And we will be starting our summer camps here on Monday. So this is my last week doing these with you, but Miss Lindsay is going to take over and do these Boredom Busters with you through the end of June, because I will be busy doing summer camp. I hope to see everybody tomorrow morning at 10:30 for our first day of robots.